Hey everybody, it's Paul with CDA Software. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's video on trip count. So if you go ahead and look at this bottom right hand corner, it says trip count of 3. So what does that mean, and how did we get a trip count of 3? Well, what this means is that for this particular ticket in CDA, we have been to this customer's house 3 times to make a repair, which could either be good or bad depending on what the notes say on why we have actually been there 3 times. But what we want to now know is, how do we calculate trip count? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring over a mobile phone. I'm going to go ahead and put it right here. Now, in order to capture a trip count, it is done 2 methods. The first method that is primarily done is through the mobile application when your technician clicks arrived. So when your technician clicks arrive, this trip count will incrementally increase by 1. So if this was grayed out and we clicked arrive, this trip count would go to 4. So first thing you want to know is the mobile device, when you click arrived, will bring up the trip count by 1. But there's also another method for which you can get a trip count, and that's going to be through the scheduling dashboard. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So here's our scheduling dashboard, and we can see that the technician for this job arrived at 4:12, which matches this, but when the technician went to this particular claim, they forgot to click arrived. Now, what that means is that because they didn't click arrive, when you run a report for trip count, you will have inaccurate information. So you always want to make sure that every one of your claims always has an arrival stamped so that you have accurate information when you run your reports. But here we are, we have no arrival, and so what will happen is your scheduling team will simply right-click on the claim number and they will say stamped arrived. So we're going to go ahead and click stamped arrived, and what that's going to do is that is going to incrementally update this particular claim number by a count of 1 for the trip count. So those are the 2 methods for which you can run a trip count to find out how the number increments. So that's what you need to know there. Now, the second thing I want to point out is, how do you run reports for trip count? So what you're going to do is you're going to go to reports, you're going to click on that, you're going to go to work orders, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and click on completed incomplete job report. So let's go ahead and click on that. Alrighty, so here we are in the job status report, and what this is going to do, if you look right over here on the right hand side, this is going to go ahead and give us our trip count. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start from the top left hand corner, and we're just going to work our way down, and we're going to go through all the options. So the first option we have is, what is our date range that we want to run the report? So 30, 60, 90. We can also come in here and we can run custom dates if we want to. Next, we want to run completed jobs, we want to run completed jobs not returned, or we want to run the report for incomplete jobs. So let's just go ahead and talk about, when you click on completed jobs, what does that mean? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up a claim real quick. We're going to look at the billing tab. So when we have completed jobs checked, what that means is we're going to look for all jobs that have completed check, and or they have a combination of completed and returned check. So either this is checked and or this is checked together. So they can both be together. So it's either one or the other. That means this report is going to capture that information. Now let's say you have it selected for completed jobs not returned. Let's go back to our example. What that means is we're going to look for jobs that are marked completed but are not marked returned. So very clear distinction between the two. So that's what that means for completed jobs not returned. Means we're going to look for completed jobs but are not checked with returned. And then last but not least, we're going to say incomplete jobs. That means we go to our billing tab, and that means we have completed unchecked, which means that's how we're going to find those jobs that are marked incomplete. But for our demo, we're going to keep it simple and we're going to say, hey, just show me all the completed jobs. Then it's going to say, hey, how do you want to sort this information by all records, COD, warranty, or third party? We're going to go ahead and say sort by all records. And then what it's going to say is, how do you want to filter your information, if at all? So we can filter by tech, by employee group, by brand code, by department code. We can do billing code. We can do billing or dealer code. We could even say what are the initials of someone that took in a claim. So that's a pretty neat filter you can do. You can also filter by zip code. You can do receive code, referral code. We have by phone number. You can even do the model number, a product code, which is pretty important for some people. So you can filter by product code, in-house sub status, extremely important. And then for service bench, you can go ahead and filter by all the different service bench substatus codes as well. And then it's going to say, well, how do you want to group all that information after we click submit? We're going to go ahead for our purpose, because we're just doing a demo, we're going to say no groups for no group totals. And then we can say, we can group by product, by tech, by brand, department, billing code, receiving code, dealer code, referral code, in-house substatus, or service bench substatus. For our demo, we are just going to say no group totals. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to say submit that information, and it's going to go ahead and pull a query. So let's just go ahead and click submit. So here we are, our query ran, and we can see we have lots of good information that we get to look at for our demo. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just bring this up, and we're going to say we can sort by claim number. We can also see our store work order. We can do customer. We can do brand. We can do product. We can do the tech. We can do the department code. We can do the billing code, the dealer code, the receive code, the referral code, the in-house substatus. We can do the service bench substatus. We can do date in, date scheduled. Here's a very good one that we want to show you, which is the number of days in. It's extremely important to see. We can see the date completed, the date paid, what was the coverage, and last but not least, and most importantly, we can see the trip count column. So we can see that this has very good information. And then down here, last but not least, we have these 4 pieces of information that we're going to use for our trip count, which is total number of jobs in report is 2854, average days to complete is 27, total first time completes is going to be 1230, and the percentage of that, this and this, is going to be 74% for completions, which is extremely good for a company. Then what we can do is we can go ahead and export that information as a PDF. So let's go ahead and click on export to PDF. So we're going to click right there, and what it's going to do is it's going to bring up a PDF that we can go ahead and see, send it off to an executive team or even to a technician if we wanted to. But what we're really after, what most people will be after, is export to Excel. So let's go ahead and export to Excel. So we're going to click right here. Our information is going to go ahead and export, and you can see all of our information exported, and you can see that we have our trip count over here. Now what we want to do is we want to take this information and make it more usable. So what we can do for that is we can go ahead and pivot it in a pivot table. So let's go ahead and put this information in a pivot table. So here we are, we're going to go ahead and make a pivot table. So what we have is we have our raw information when we did the export, and then what we did is we have a tab here called recalls, and the way that we're going to work with that is we just pulled a report from jobs tally, and what we did is we just said, hey, show us recalls, and then what we did is we merged both the recall and our export into a pivot table, and lo and behold, here we go. We can now see that exported information from our jobs report, in a way that we can view it a bit friendlier. And so we can see we have a tech called Larry, a tech called Mike, and a tech called Jane. And you can see that Larry ran 67 calls, and Mike ran 49 calls, and Jane ran 71 calls. And this was during the month of March, which wasn't complete. So this would be like a half a month, 15 days of working. And you can see first time completes for Larry was 23% with 27 jobs. Second time completes, it took him 53%, 31 jobs. Third time completes, it was 21% of his total jobs, which was only 8 jobs. And then there was one job where he ran that took him 4 attempts, and that was 3% of his jobs. Now here's a very piece of important information, which is average number of days to complete. So we see first time completes was 10, second time was 17, third time was 31 days, and that fourth attempt for the technician to get the complete took 42 days. And then you can see we captured recall. So there was 1 recall for first attempts, 2 recalls on second attempts, 1 recall on third, 1 recall on fourth. So looking pretty good. Again, same information for this technician Mike, 49 jobs. So 20% first complete. Second attempt is 66% and 14% for third attempt to complete their jobs. And again, this is the number of days that it took to complete each of those attempts. And if there were recalls, we went ahead and captured recalls as well. So that's what you can do with all this information. And that is going to complete today's video on trip count.